topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hello and Happy New Year. Great to have you with us. I'm Bill Martinez, and we are live. For more information on the show, you can go to billmartinezlive.com. Coming up, two special guests. First one is John Guandolo, former Marine, so you know there's affection there. And John is also the terrorism expert and former FBI and national security expert. And he's going to be analyzing the current threats that we're faced with as citizens. Okay, what do we do about it? Can we talk situational awareness? Can we realize that the threats are real and maybe they're quite in contrast to what the president has been saying? And of course, it's hard to believe the president and some of these institutions that have been telling us, particular things about terrorism that really have nothing to do. But there is real terrorism, but it needs to be correctly identified. And this has been one of the challenges that John Guandolo has had for many years in training, FBI and other agencies to get them to wake up to really what terrorism is out there. And of course, this is on the heels of an open border that we've gone through for the last 4 years. We don't know really the number. I mean, they estimate 10 million. I mean, you hear anywhere 8 million, 10 million. I mean, pick a number. Is it 20 million? I don't know if it's that high, but certainly maybe combined, it's certainly more than 20 million. And for a long time, they've said, we've had 11 million illegal immigrants in this country. And they've been staying with that number for, over a decade. So, that number has increased, if nothing else, just by the mere birth rate that happens amongst the immigrants, because they're having babies. And by the way, once they have babies, that child is a citizen. How goofy is that? And of course, the media is all concerned. You're going to break up families. What do you do? Well, and Tom Homan had a great answer. He says, "No, I'm not interested. I don't want to break up families. We'll just send the whole family, the entire family back." I mean, this idea of anchor babies, this has all been, a lot of confusion and misinformation and misapplication of the law of what the anchor baby was actually all about and what it represented. But the Democrats, the radical left, who have opened our borders, and I understand you could probably be, bruising your brain for a long time to try to understand why, because that's what a lot of people are asking, why? Well, we know when it comes to politics, a lot that drives it is the money. It's that old axiom, follow the money, right? Well, John will be here. We'll talk about that in length. And then also Jeff Crouere, my good friend from New Orleans. He is a native New Orleanian, a political commentator and host of the award-winning program Ringside Politics. He asks, is Joe Biden continuing to blowtorch his legacy as he spoils the well, exiting the White House? And that idea of spoiling the well, right? It seems like at every turn. We just can't wait to get his administration behind us so that we can, get this country back on track. Also, the question that Jeff will ask is why Republicans must be in lockstep in the first 100 days of the Trump administration. So my good friend John Crouere and also Jeff Crouere and also John Guandolo will be joining us to break that down. In fact, right now, John Guandolo is ready to come on the show. Let's bring him on right now. Hey, John, Happy New Year to you. Good to have you with us.
Thanks very much. Great to be on with you, Bill.
Well, President Biden, wow, what a hot mess he continues to be. The Democrats they can't even admit that there was anything mentally. I mean, even Schumer, as of over the weekend, still kind of tried to, dodge the question of when did he know Joe Biden was infirmed?
Right. Well, because they're lying. Chuck Schumer has a long history of lying, and you can't deny the facts. They're even contradicting themselves. And so why? I would argue what you and I have talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
This is a nefarious group of people that are undermining the country, undermining their oaths of office. I think this is a real coup that took place several years ago. I would argue January 2021. They have not relinquished power, and I don't think they're planning on relinquishing power. And this is where we find ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, today we had the certification of the votes. It is official. Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States of America. And of course, the Democrats are bragging as if they're the example of democracy and demonstrating to everybody how a transition from one administration to another should take place, right?
Right. Yeah. So when you look at these different events through the lens of what the reality is, of all the things they've said in the workup, not only to this certification, but to the inauguration, and what we've seen Mr. Biden do since Election Day, pardoning violent criminals, murderers, gang members. What is it that they're trying to do? Well, the same thing they did when they let millions of people into the country that are dangerous.
Yeah.
And they are trying to destroy the country. They're intentionally doing it because these are people who are adversaries of the country. And that's what they intend to do.
And they're adversarial to the Constitution, John, on its face. I mean, really, that's the main question that I think people should ask, is that with everything that the Democratic Party poses, is it adding or taking away from our freedoms? And at every turn, the Democrats want to have full control and power. It is not about liberty. It's not about the Constitution. I mean, if anybody is a threat to democracy, it has been them, and they've demonstrated it on every turn, have they not?
Yeah, I think for them, what it is all about is about control of the state and power. These are statists. These are totalitarians. And I think the most difficult thing throughout all of this is Americans digesting that. And of course, now they dismiss it because they believe Mr. Trump's coming into power. The lights are back on. Everything's going to be fine. Everything is not fine.
No.
We're in a real war. And these recent events around the world and around the country demonstrate that. I mean, you can't take any of these things in a vacuum.
Right.
What, Mr. Biden giving the presidential medal to George Soros, if that is not a shovel to your face to make you wake up that they are literally awarding publicly in your face the very people funding the destruction of America, then you'll never wake up.
Well, exactly. And also let's mention Hillary Clinton for all that she did, even as Secretary of State, what she did during the campaign to put out this big lie that she paid no consequence whatsoever, that cost the American people millions and millions of dollars to chase this pipe dream. Anybody else, John, would have been in jail for it, for what she did. And, and she gets away with it. And then she's awarded what used to be a prestigious Medal of Honor, the highest award that an American citizen can achieve. I mean, to me, that tarnishes that award, doesn't it?
Sure it does. And this is what I'm getting at is they're literally on the one hand freeing violent criminals, supporting the communist movement, the Islamic movement, the jihadis in the United States. You've got Hamas guys working in the Bush administration, Farouk Mitha, Maher Bitar, working in the Biden administration. They're advancing the jihadi cause. They're advancing the communist cause. And then they're flipping you the bird to your face by giving Mrs. Clinton and George Soros this award. And they're basically telling you there's nothing you're going to do about it. And there's nothing Donald Trump's going to do about it. And we'll see. Donald Trump said she should be in jail, but he didn't do jack about Mrs. Clinton. He didn't do jack about the many people who are in positions of power that are traitors. So I'm told, he's got a new lot on life, but he's still got people around him that do not understand the problem, especially the jihadi problem, people like Rick Grenell and Gorka. So I don't, I look at the war from the way I've looked at it from the beginning.
Mhm.
The nature of the war and the nature of the enemy and the nature of the corruption in the federal government. The only way we can win this war is if American citizens identify the organizations and individuals at the local level and flush them out, the communists, the jihadis, and their collaborators. To think that one administration is going to clean this up, that's not a sane thought.
Yeah, they've been in place for decades here, John, to your point. I mean, when we talk about the deep state, I mean, it seems so simple and academic, but no, that deep state is very, very deep and broad, is it not?
Right, it is. I like, and I prefer. I know the colloquial is the deep state, but it's really a counter state. It's let's use the
I like
terms
that.
of
Yeah.
Mao, because in political warfare, which is a form of warfare from the communist side, that's total war. The Quranic concept of war is total war. Everything is in play, and that's the way they wage war. And the counter state is the state that is set up inside the existing state, America, to destroy it from within like a cancer. And we don't just have one counter state. You have an Islamic counter state and a communist counter state. They're working together seamlessly at the local level to destroy this country. They are on the brink of winning, and everyone's sitting around. Again, we're back to sitting on our hands, not you and me, but a lot of people hoping that Mr. Trump will walk into office and the bad guys will magically evaporate. We are in real danger. And there are key indicators. And again, I love that you started with this, because I think we cannot underestimate what the symbolism is of awarding George Soros and Hillary Clinton the presidential medals.
Exactly. Well, as you say, the threats are clear. And they're thinking that because they've been able to get away with it for so long, in cooperation with the mainstream media that has done us no favors whatsoever. They're complicit in all this, because it's all driven, as you say, power and control and money. When you follow the money and you see how that money comes back to politicians, how the political class extends favor to the media to get them to do their bidding. I mean, the deck is stacked against the everyday citizen, John.
Well, that may be how it feels. Here's what the reason that I spend, 95% of my time training communities and citizens, local officials and police when they'll do the training, but it's really for citizens, because when you are able to see and do your research, because we give those tools, how to find the organizations and individuals, good Americans do it. And it's in the areas that we've been training people, it's really, quite frankly, exciting to watch them, do really what Mr. Trump did in 2016, which is, pull back the covering and expose the disgusting, seedy side of what's been going on in Washington too long. Well, in the same way, we empower citizens at the local level to actually put their finger on communists, jihadis, and people collaborating with them, and really use and quite a large number of techniques to get them to either stop doing what they're doing, but more likely leave their county and go do it elsewhere. And of course, that's someone else's problem. But the reality is, if you want to liberate your county and fortify your county, it's actually not complicated. You can do it. You just have to have the will and the desire to do it.
And part of the situation here, John, if the truth be known, most of these jihadis find themselves more comfortable in the blue states as opposed to the red states because of what you just said. I mean, the first part of dealing with any problem is admitting that you've got a problem. And Donald Trump has been an agency of exposure to all this. So now that you have no excuse, because what's hanging in the balance here is not only your life, but the lives of your children, your family, and your legacy, right?
That's absolutely right. And you just nailed a really important point. Over the years, really when I was in the FBI from 2006 to 2016 or so, I mean, I still speak with members of Congress, but
Mm.
I don't waste my time going to DC anymore. It's proven to be not time well spent. But I briefed hundreds, myself and one or two of my colleagues, we briefed hundreds of members of the House and the Senate over those years, even after elections transpired. And only a few, and you know, and your audience knows who they are, the ones we worked with, only a few, Louis Gohmert, Michelle Bachmann, Chip Kravac, Sue Myrick, Trent Franks, had the courage to stand up, Alan West, and speak truthfully about the Islamic threat. Yeah. The rest of them had guilty knowledge and they did nothing. And I would argue, especially people like Mike Rogers on the intelligence committee, who did nothing and continues to do nothing, continues to speak half-truths and lies about the real problem. I think he is criminally negligent, just like governors of places like Louisiana and Texas, who in the case of Louisiana, I briefed directly when he was Attorney General 8 years ago about these threats in Louisiana. He did nothing because he didn't want to hurt his political career. Or the leadership of Texas, which I briefed, 2012. What's that, 13 years ago. Yeah, exactly. And they've done nothing about the massive jihadi network. So, and these are Republicans. Republicans. So until people decide they're going to abide by their oath of office, which they're required to by law, they're not going to do anything. And I don't expect them to. I don't expect them to. The only way we're going to win this war is when citizens decide they are going to identify and flush out the bad guys. And then you can fortify your county and you can start fortifying your state.
Well, we're talking with John Guandolo, the counterterrorism expert, former FBI agent. John, it all comes down to those three important words in the Constitution. You can't look to Donald Trump to be the answer. It's we the people. That's what the Constitution was based on fundamentally. So if we the people go comatose, then you get the kind of government that we've been dealing with, not only 4 years under Biden, but we had 8 years of Obama that did us no favors either. And here it is, Trump has been he's been doing this on his own, and he's fighting his own party. He's fighting the bureaucracy at every turn. We said, even before the election, that Donald Trump needed to go into DC with reinforcements. Well, the reinforcements are us. It's we the people. We're the ones that must keep the pressure on Congress, particularly in this case with the Republicans, to be in lockstep, especially for these first 100 days, John. If we're going to have any success, then the Republican Party, with a very small margin to deal with, particularly in the House, they have got to be in lockstep. And I think they found that out quite clearly when they voted for when they voted to keep the gavel with Mike Johnson, right?
That's right. I mean, there are all these indicators. I just remember, 14 years ago, the Tea Party went in and we were all excited, and they got to the front door of the Capitol and basically turned around and flipped us off.
Yeah.
And then walked in and most of them, not all of them, but most of them got in step with the GOP leadership. Yeah. And that's why, we've got the Democrats, which are the leading edge of the communist movement in the United States. They are organized, and they have no problem fulfilling the lines of operation to advance their cause. The Republican leadership is so skittish, so scared, and so cowardly. And the only way they're going to do anything is if the people have that branding iron right up against their backside and jam it and burn their butts to get them to do what needs to be done. That's it. You have to be standing over them to make sure they do what's done. And when they don't, you toss them out. But we are to the point where we are on the brink of losing the whole thing. And
that's right.
Again, what concerns me is the arrogance and in some cases the silence of the real leadership of this hostile movement. And I'm talking about the Democrat leadership.
Yeah.
You've got the regular people out there running their mouths, but a lot of them are quiet. That makes me wonder what they've got up their sleeve in the next, week or two, but also the next month or two. We'll see. Well,
they're not going to give up power and control easy. And as you know, in any kind of combat situation, this is really combat, what it comes down to. And we're in close quarters right now, and it requires no fear. It requires resolve. See, and that's been part of the problem with the Republican Party is they've lost their sense of resolve. Donald Trump has tried to energize them and show them what it's like. But, that's an uphill battle, as you said, because the traditions of the Beltway are so well established that you don't want to step on any toes. And like you said here, we got hopeful and excited when the Tea Party movement happened. And you're right. It was the Republicans and Democrats just flipped off conservatives and said, adios, we want nothing to do with you. Well, the next time was 4 years ago, January 6th, you had patriots come out and say, look this is bogus. This doesn't make sense. And so it wasn't enough to flip them off anymore. We got to jail them. So they jail, 1,200 people? I mean, you're talking senior citizens, grandmothers. I mean, the kind of stuff that has been executed upon we the people over the last 4 years brought to you by this administration is disgusting.
It is. That was a great way to summarize that. And I think the idea that just because Mr. Trump is coming in, it's all going to change. The bureaucracy is going to remain fairly unchanged unless Mr. Trump and his people dig deep down into the bureaucracy to push people out. And we'll see. We'll see. But I'm certainly hopeful. But even if he does all that, that will not win the war. And I just want to remind your viewers and your listeners, changing policies, fixing policies, changing or fixing issues does not win wars. Wars are won by identifying and vanquishing the enemy.
Exactly.
That is what has to happen. You have a massive communist movement, a massive Islamic movement, and a number of entities supporting them here domestically. But what is going on in the United States is being controlled, coordinated, and directed by hostile foreign powers.
Right.
Make no mistake, we are in a war. And unless this administration comes in a war footing, ready from the minute, right? I do. When he says that, I just, it's got to be all hands on deck. And that means all American patriots.
Well, unlike previously, John, Donald Trump this time around seems to have a higher sense of determination and urgency. Last time, if you recall, I mean, it was tough. I mean, here you're an everyday citizen. You're going into the Beltway and trying to deal with these people that, want to glad hand you and be your friend. And meanwhile, they've got a dagger that they're putting in your back at the same time. And it's just absolutely disgusting. But that is the way the Beltway works. And I don't think Donald Trump is set to be fooled like he was the first time around. And as you say, we'll see. But in addition to all these nefarious activists that are here in our country right now, then add on it all these illegal immigrants that are controlled and tied to the cartels. That is something I keep saying over and over again. They want to say, well, these immigrants are, they're just like everyday. No, they're not. When they're beholden to the cartels, they have no loyalty to America. They have, by threat and by a coercion, they have surrendered their loyalties to the cartels that are operating on both sides of the border, not just in Mexico, right?
That's right. That's right. And, it's good to note, kind of go back in history, and you remember after 9/11, Robert Mueller testified that Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups, the way they were dressing, number one, to look more like they're from Central or South America, and then learning enough Spanish so when they got asked questions, they would just throw some Spanish phrases out. They'd assume they're from Central or South America and put them over here in this pile when actually these are real jihadis. Yeah. So imagine that was going on when we actually wanted the border tight and defending America. Now that it's open, and just the incidental information we have of people on the watch list that have crossed the border is astounding. And that doesn't include the millions that we don't know who they are. Yeah. And this administration has intentionally aided and abetted that. So any misconceptions that Americans have that the current administration is not intentionally acting to destroy this country, I think you got to be, as dumb as a cinder block to bite off on that line of thinking.
It pretty well summarizes it all. I think in closing, John, situational awareness by the citizenry is key right now, because clearly what we saw in these recent terrorist attacks, our government cannot control these terrorists, and we all have to be vigilant and have our head on a swivel and protect ourselves and our families. Right? I'm going to let you summarize and wrap it up. Go ahead.
Well, absolutely. I think you and your family should be ready for what we're already in. That just hasn't bled over to the level that most people are wondering if it's going to happen, which is a war.
Yes.
I mean, you have right now, Al Qaeda is planning major attacks. The Muslim Brotherhood is within itself in the United States and North America deciding whether to go full-blown violent or since they've already got some ends to the Trump administration, can they hold off the Trump administration long enough to make it another 4 years and then go full violent then? I don't think so, because there are enough people in the Brotherhood and in the Muslim community that are arguing to go violent now. You've got the communists who want to go violent now. I think the storm that is at our doorstep that's been brewing now and culminating for the last 3 to 4 years is here.
Yes.
And Americans need to be prepared, and they need to be thinking about how they are prepared and how well organized they are with their neighbors and their fellow patriots.
Well, we got to leave it there. John Guandolo, the terrorism expert and former FBI agent. John, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, coming up next, we got Jeff Crouere, our favorite New Orleanian, is going to be joining us in just a moment. Jeff has his own award-winning show and talk show host himself. Looking forward to having a few moments with him. But before we do, I just want to share with you that this portion of the program is being brought to you by my good friends at Goldco. Now, at these times, smart money and smart people are talking about investing in gold and silver. Have you noticed? I mean, that just seems to be a part of the conversation every day. And I understand. I'm with you. I mean, it's like, people say, Bill, I'm thinking about this, but who do I know? Who do I trust? Well, I'll tell you, you've got to do your due diligence as I did. And this is why I've partnered up with Goldco. They are just an excellent group of people. They know what they're doing. They've got a proven track record. They're A+ Better Business Bureau rating. They have served hundreds of thousands of people in helping them, people like you and me, helping them get into precious metals and fortifying their investments. And right now, to help you out, they are offering a free 2025 gold and silver kit. And you can access that by going to Gold for Bill. You can either the number 4 or you can write it out, goldforbill.com. It's right there. Just request your free information kit. There's no pressure. Okay. They're there to help you out and help you understand so you can make a well-informed decision about your finances. Okay. The power of the economy, the power of your own personal economy is in your hands. And Goldco respects that, and they're there to help you out. So check it out. In fact, for certain services and that sort of thing, certain qualified purchases, they'll give you a 10% bonus in silver. That's right, 10% on top, just for your investment and for believing and trusting in them, because that's what it comes down to. And Goldco is the company that you can trust. So again, the website that you want to go to is goldforbill.com. That's goldforbill.com. Well, Jeff Crouere is with us, and we're going to bring him on right now. My good friend from Louisiana, New Orleans, to be specific. Hey, Jeff, Happy New Year, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Bill. Good to be with you, sir.
Hey, I appreciate your time, to come on the show here to, talk about the incoming administration. The votes were certified. We didn't have another January 6th. Here Donald Trump was supposed to be such a threat to democracy. And even Joe Biden had to swallow those words the other day when he was asked about that. I think the American people understand the truth. And I thought this was an interesting number that they were looking at, said that when Donald Trump left the White House 4 years ago, 56%, because of the narrative of the media, Jeff, believe that Donald Trump lost his privilege to become president. And each succeeding year, the numbers went down. I think 56 went down to in the 40s, and there was 30s, and up till election day, it was less than 10%. What does that tell you, Jeff? Not to mention the vote. What did the vote tell you, right?
Well, Bill, I am just so thankful that this day went by with certification. I'm thankful that now the focus is on the future. I'm thankful that we've got 2 weeks left, that we don't have more than that of Joe Biden and his disaster. He's coming down to my hometown today, and not looking forward to seeing him. So it's just an amazing thing that we're where we are based on where we were 4 years ago. Nobody thought Donald Trump would be back in the White House after January 6th 4 years ago. They were writing his political obituary, and lo and behold, here we are celebrating a massive victory, celebrating a landslide, celebrating the fact that we can restore our country again from these wackos. Now, these wackos aren't going to go away, as you just talked about with your previous guest. We still have dangers. I mean, we have a lot of threats,
right?
And we're going to have to be on guard. But thankfully, Bill, we've got some good news that we can share, and today was a big step forward.
Yeah, and we need to your point, Jeff, we need to encourage one another. Let's not get too overly concerned. Yes, the threats are real, and we must keep our head on a swivel. Here it is. We're getting former military personnel who went and served our country, and we don't know everything about it yet. But what happened there on Bourbon Street, what happened in Las Vegas, we don't know the whole story, but we do know there's some similarities here between these two events, and not to mention, at the end of the year, what happened in Germany.
Right.
So there's something boiling here that we need to be conscious of, right?
Well, no doubt. We've got to keep an eye on real threats. And it fits into January 6th, because look at what our Department of Justice has been focusing on, Bill. People that walked into the Capitol for the last 4 years. They've been rounding up these people, throwing them in jail, monitoring them.
Over 1,200 people, Jeff.
Hunting them down, Bill.
Right.
And we had a guy who was radicalized, went to Egypt, went to Canada, obviously was influenced. I don't believe that he did this just on his own. And where was the FBI in monitoring this guy? All of these recent school shootings, these are people that have been radicalized. Where are the FBI folks who are investigating these type of people? No. They've been focused on January 6th. So we need to get back to real threats. We need to stop going after MAGA and parents and Catholics and pro-life supporters, and go after, how about jihadists? How about people that pledge allegiance to ISIS, and people that are real threats to our country? A lot of these transgender, violent activists, Antifa. So that's what I'm praying, that this new Attorney General is going to be tough and really move the Department of Justice in a whole new direction, Bill.
Exactly. Well, it's not only the leadership, but it's we the people. We the people must follow in lockstep to those things that are good and righteous. This kind of craziness has been happening in our country, has been with our acceptance. We've just kind of, let it happen. We have bought in order to accommodate these radicals. We've accommodated them at what expense? At the expense of our own Constitution, at the expense of our own children that are being controlled by, school teachers and psychologists to say, oh, I know you think you're born a boy, but you really are a girl. And we've got something to take care of that for you. And don't worry, you don't have to tell mom and dad about that. Right. And your pronoun is your pronoun. And we're going to, respect your pronoun, even though your parents and your family members don't. Shame on them. Right.
We have been introducing topics and subject matters, issues that young children are not prepared emotionally, physically, morally to handle.
Right.
And it's child abuse that all of this has been, foisted upon young children in school settings, a lot of times without the parents' knowledge. We need to get back to teaching. How about teaching real issues? How about teaching real topics, real subject matters? Important subjects are going to help people succeed in their professional life. Not talking about gender and really talking about sexual issues that are not appropriate for young children. So that's a whole nother thing. We've got to change the way we're educating. We're not keeping up with a lot of other countries as far as, our young people, because they're being, given all these issues to have to deal with, and it's really causing a lot of them to have emotional distress. We have higher numbers of suicides and people that are unfortunately on drugs and claiming that they're transgender. That's because of how they've been really manipulated, unfortunately, by people in school settings and counselors, etc. It's child abuse.
You haven't been educated; they've been indoctrinated, and part of the psychology of our nation has been greatly affected by this idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI), which I said on its very onset really should be translated to DIE, because it is a killer. It kills people's spirits. When you start offering, it all started, Jeff, if you remember, performance trophies were the thing, right? Everybody gets a trophy. It's like, wait a minute, welcome to Oprah show. You get a trophy. Everybody gets a trophy.
Right.
It doesn't work. Look what we've got after all these years. Our kids have been dumbed down. They've been mediocratized by the institutions, Jeff, right?
Well, back in our day, Bill, we had to win to get a trophy.
Yeah.
You actually had to be on a team that actually won some games. And that way, when you got it, it meant something.
Exactly.
You were able to strive for that kind of excellence. When you give it to everyone, it really takes away the incentive. It takes away the thrill of competition. It doesn't help at all in the development of young people. So you're right. That was really a trend that we've seen over the years that has been very detrimental. A lot of these things that have been done supposedly to help the feelings of young children have really been very detrimental to them. And we've got to get back to some traditional education, traditional discipline, traditional morals. I'd love to see prayer reintroduced in the schools. Here in Louisiana, we're putting the 10 Commandments back in the schoolroom. So those are some things that I think could have some positive results.
Yeah, why not? Look at what was going on with the education system when, oh my God, the 10 Commandments was within the hallways of these schools. Compared to where it is now, we don't want those days again when the kids were learning, reading, writing, arithmetic, these basic skill sets that made America's education system some of the best in the world. But since public education institution has come in, which I think is ripe to be just restructured, if not totally disbanded, because when you look at it, and for all the money we've been putting into it, Jeff, is it worth it?
No. And Bill, one of the great promises of Donald Trump, and it was a promise really of Ronald Reagan, is to get rid of the Department of Education. And I think that would be one of the most positive steps that he could do as president of the United States. Rip out all of those bureaucrats. All of that money is being diverted from going toward helping and teaching children and providing resources for children. It's going to fat cat salaries. And I think education is best at the local level. Here in Louisiana, we have vouchers, which I think are a good thing. School choice is a good thing. We've got charter schools, because people are looking at their traditional public schools and they're saying, hey, they don't work. They're not educating children. There's too much violence. There's no discipline. You've got to cater to 50, 60 languages.
Yeah.
How can you do that, Bill?
No, it's impossible.
How can you do that?
Yeah. I remember in one school district, our kids was predominantly a Hispanic district. And all it took was 2 kids. The school sizes then, Jeff, were about 25 kids per classroom. Now, I grew up with nuns, and I was grateful for the education I had with nuns. There was like 63 kids in the classroom, 63. Okay. And some of the best education compared to kids that went to public school. I was at least a year and a half ahead of them. And the teachers, the nuns there were very, very efficient in controlling 63 kids. But in public schools, 25, and the unions are screaming, the teachers are screaming. And then, as if that's not enough, you say, oh, okay, we got these 2 kids that have come across the border and you've got to teach them. Okay. But they, the bad news is they don't understand English. Just 2 kids. And now, of course, they would love to have only be in a classroom with only 2 kids who can't speak the language. As you said, there are tens, dozens of kids in a classroom. And meanwhile, your English speaking child that you pay taxes for is just sitting there, trying to figure it out. Right.
That's exactly right. And I had nuns too, growing up, and I remember they used to get their ruler out and crack your knuckle if you were misbehaving.
I thought that only happened to me, Jeff. It happened to you too?
And then at high school, we had Christian brothers, and some of these people, I mean, if you were sleeping on the desk, they'd kick the desk open and you'd fly out of there. I mean, you had people that actually believed in discipline.
Exactly.
And of course, that helped the education of everyone because people were able to straighten up and focus on the studies. They didn't have as many goofballs and you didn't have as many distractions. But yeah, I think we can go back to some of those good old fashioned teaching methods that I think would work. And what also is happening, and I talk about it on my show all the time, people are moving to homeschooling, Bill.
Yes, exactly. In big numbers. And you can't blame them. I mean, and they're realizing, Jeff, in the process, Sam Sorbo, who's a dear friend and a champion for homeschooling, I'm sure you probably have talked to her many times as well, and she's there to help parents who think, oh my gosh, this is so indomitable. How am I going to be able to do this? And man, there have been many parents before you. The information that's available, the computer aided instruction that's available to help you get your child through. It's amazing what you can accomplish with 3 quality hours at home versus 8 hours in a classroom.
And then you can also have associations where children that are in homeschool settings can socialize with other children, because that's the concern that people have, or are my kids going to socialize with other kids? And they can deal with that by combining forces with others that are homeschooling, having the kids interact, provide that socialization that kids do need. But as you say, this can focus kids on education, and you have teachers that really do care because they're their parents. And the homeschool students that I've met over the years have all been well disciplined and well educated, Bill.
Well, and what I love also, Jeff, is what some of these communities are doing, these neighborhoods, is parents will team up together, because you have one parent who really loves history and they're really good. And so they'll hold a history class with 5 kids in the neighborhood, right? And then you get a math parent, that understands calculus in their sleep and all this stuff. And they just, they're the math teacher for the neighborhood. It's awesome the way it's bringing communities together. And they're finding themselves to be most effective. But, Jeff, I know you feel the same way as I do. And that is, I believe those educational funds should follow the child wherever that child goes.
No doubt about it. And that's what we have seen over the years is best. That's the model we're trying to move toward here in Louisiana. That's what we need to do on the national level. Get rid of all these bureaucrats and people that are just on these exorbitant salaries that are unnecessary, all this bureaucracy. And of course, this extends all throughout government, which is going to be a big project of DOGE, and a big project that I think the Trump administration is going to tackle. When you're 36.2 trillion in debt, Bill, you got a lot of cutting you need to do.
Well, no doubt about it. Well, we're talking with Jeff Crouere. He's the host of Ringside Politics, author, a columnist as well. Jeff, you bring up DOGE, and the Democrats are just shaking in their boots because they know that this has been something that the people have been asking for a long time. Go back to Tom Coburn with his, waste study that he would produce on an annual basis. That since has evolved into Open the Books, and John Hart is running that. We lost Andy Andrzejewski last year suddenly, but he and their team have done a great job in exposing government waste. And I know it's an aspirational goal of Musk and Ramaswamy to cut $2 trillion. And everybody's shaking in their boots and they're talking about, oh, you're going to cut Medicare, you're going to do all this damage to Social Security. And Joe Biden brought that up the other day, and I was just screaming at the television set. I said, wait a minute, you're the one that let all these illegal immigrants come into the country. You bankrupt our government, taking money, and you're claiming that somehow you're protecting Social Security and Medicare? Give me a break.
Let's not forget, Bill, that Joe Biden is the biggest spender in American history. He added more to the national debt than any other president in history, 8.5 trillion and growing. I mean, these last few weeks are going to be expensive because he's giving money away to everybody. But yeah, I think we can easily cut $2 trillion. I think it's very doable. I think what they can do is start closing down some of these buildings in DC that you don't have occupants.
Less than 10%. Are coming to work, Jeff. Give me a break.
How about say, hey, if you don't come to work in the office, you're fired. That would get rid of about 90% of the employees, huh, Bill?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And plus the other thing too, the scam that they've got here, Jeff, they're paid based on the zip code of DC. Very expensive, right? Well, these people are living in North Dakota. They're living in parts unknown outside of DC, where the cost of living is quite a bit lower, but they're being paid at a DC level equivalent. I mean, this is the scam that they're putting on the taxpayer.
Bill, this is another legacy of COVID. And, we had the massive increase in spending from COVID that they really never brought back down. They just kept it at that level and kept increasing. So we have people that don't work from the office anymore, people that are scamming and working from quote unquote home, all this extra spending. How about we get back to pre-COVID levels of spending? How about we get back to increases that make sense based on need, not just based on hysteria? So we've got a lot of work to do. This president is going to be so busy trying to get it done. And, a lot of people are going to be rolling up their sleeves to try to help. I mean, we can't keep spending like this, Bill. We can't. It's going to lead to, the devaluing of our currency. We know that.
It already has. I mean, it's at least 25% less than it was over the transition from Trump to Biden. And here it is. We have the opportunity now with Trump coming back to the White House. Of course, we'll drill, baby drill. It's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. Probably the thing that will happen most rapidly is the reduction in regulation nation. This is what he did before. Remember when he came into office, he told everybody, he says, for every one new regulation, we're going to get rid of two. I think at one point, according to Peter Navarro, who was on with me last year, he said, Bill, we were knocking out 18 regulations. I said, Peter, are you kidding me? Are there that many? He goes, there are so many regulations. You have no idea, how bad and how prolific they are.
That is what I'm hearing, Bill, that the most important thing that this president can do, along with reducing spending, along with giving tax cuts, is getting rid of some of these regulations. And that can be the most important legacy that he leaves if he can deregulate to a great degree and increase the freedom of Americans. So that would be a great gift to future generations of Americans. But, it's not going to be easy. None of this is going to be easy because, the Democrats are going to fight us every step of the way.
Well, the first 100 days is critical, and he's fighting an uphill battle because we got a thin lead in the House, as you know, and it's critical. The Republicans found out, if they didn't already know, that they need to stay in lockstep, and they found it out in reelecting Mike Johnson to be the leader of the House. But they need to keep that mindset in place so that Trump can have the most successful 100 days of any president, because the issues are quite clear. They're not that complex. They're very simple in a sense, not that easy necessarily, but they're right in your face what needs to be fixed. As you said, the open border, energy, taxes, securing our national security. These are quite clear, Jeff, right?
No doubt about it. Drill, baby, drill. Reduce taxes, reduce regulations, rebuild our military, hopefully get us out of endless wars, secure our border, bring back manufacturing, bring back our factories, bring back our jobs, deport people that are here illegally. I mean, those are the sort of the cornerstones of his platform and how he was elected. What's happening now is Biden is trying to box him in so that he can't do a lot of this.
Exactly.
Drill, baby, drill. I mean, look at what he's doing as far as trying to make it impossible for him to drill offshore with these new executive orders that Biden is now releasing. 2 weeks before he leaves office, Bill. I mean,
yeah, he's blowtorching everything. We used to say, well, you read in the books in the old days when the conquering nation would come in, those that were conquered would spoil the well, right? This is what Joe Biden is doing. It is more nefarious than, if you remember Bill Clinton and his team, what did they do when George W. Bush, they took all the W's out of the keyboards of the computers, right?
Right.
Yeah, much more innocuous.
Yeah, this is a lot more serious than that, a lot more dangerous. And it just goes to show you what type of person Joe Biden is.
Yeah.
What type of people he has got surrounding him. These are people that, in my view, are evil. They're people that hate America. They're people that don't respect the will of the people. We just had a landslide victory for this man, and they're trying to prevent him from implementing the will of the people. So that's their mindset. They've been stealing from the public, getting away with it. They're trying to get away with it again. And, it's just going to make the challenge more difficult for President Trump. But I've got confidence in him. And I hope the Republicans will do what they need to do in Congress, Bill.
Well, Jeff Crouere, they've exposed themselves. And in my humble opinion, they do not deserve the confidence of the people and the privilege to lead the people. They have abandoned their purpose to exist in terms of serving the American taxpayer and we the people. We got to leave it there. Jeff Crouere, as always, I so appreciate your time. God bless you, my friend. Happy New Year. He's the host of Ringside Politics Show. The website they can go to, Jeff, to find out more about you.
My last name, Crouere.net, Crouere.net. And Bill, as always, thanks for having me.
God bless you, my friend. Take care.
Take care.
That's a wrap for us. Thank you for being with us and sharing a part of your time. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and give you peace. Thanks again. We'll see you next week.